Yeah, my name is Dane Schroff, and I am obsessed with Willys. Or as most people pronounce it, the correct pronunciation is Willis, which I call it a Willys. A lot of people just get mad about that and get a lot of hate online about it. I've only been into them for, I guess, like 6 years now. During COVID, we had a meeting out west, out in Arizona, with a handful of friends that we got together and decided to have this big flat fender meet. That's the most common term used on is flat fenders. So anyway, I decided, hey, I'll go do this. And a friend came in. I was in New Mexico at the time. A friend drove by and picked me up, and we headed on to Arizona, and it changed my life. I mean, I've always been into off-road and, any kind of motorsports, but I was a Land Rover guy before this. And then, when you get in something like a flat fender, and especially when you start following the history of them, it's kind of amazing. They came out during World War II, and, there's a lot of generals back then that said that they won the war for us. I mean, because it was just such a different thing from going from, hey, we have horses to now we have these 60 horsepower Jeeps that can move men and equipment and over rough terrain. The trip in Arizona really did it for me. After that, I was like, I want to, and just the camaraderie, the people that are behind them and the stories, either their grandfather had one or they grew up with one or something like that. So to me, people are what make it special. The connections with people and just the stuff that, that follows along with that. The Jeeps themselves, they are neat, and the history of them neat, but yeah, it's that's kind of where it started all. And then I started going to Moab regularly and meeting with friends there, and just one thing led to another, and I started buying some here and there. The first one I bought was right outside of Atlanta, and it was just kind of a beater. It's just a total junk, but I was like, this is the best thing ever. And then the next was an estate sale, and estate sales are dangerous, especially when you go there and there's multiple and they tell you have to buy them all. So luckily, I'm good friends with the guy that got me involved in that. I think I bought 8 that day. And it just kind of took off after that. And I ended up turning a hobby into a full-time gig. And that's what I do all day, every day now, is work on these and rebuild them and take them on road trips. And, I've been across the country on them. I've bought them across the country and driven them back. And, it's just, and the adventure in them too. And, when you get out in the middle of nowhere in one, especially, when you're out by yourself, like, I've been 300 miles away from civilization in some, and, you just, I wish they could talk, because if they could tell a story, somebody bought that thing new in the late 40s, and they were fairly expensive, the equivalent to like $50,000 today. And, if wish you could just talk to those people and how many different hands it's changed over, and you don't hardly ever get the stories behind them, but it's definitely a special thing, the stories behind them, and then obviously the people that come with them. I have one that's a 1962 flat fender, which a lot of people would argue they didn't make them in 62, and they did. When Kaiser bought Willys, became Kaiser Willys, they had a surplus of these old military Jeeps laying around, and he needed to do something with them, and they were wanting to retire in Hawaii, and his wife wanted to be involved in something, so they made a line of them called the Surrey Jeeps, and there was 1,200 of them made, and there was 3 different colors. There was 500 in like a teal, there was 500 in a baby blue, and there was 200 in pink. And I just happened to find a pink one here in Atlanta. It was bought at the Atlanta dealership. It's been in Georgia its whole life, and I had no clue what it was when I bought it. I didn't know it had been painted over. It was painted over by a gentleman in the 70s with a paintbrush. It was painted green because he didn't want a pink Jeep. Just little did he know that would be the rarest flat fender around. They were marketed for beachy environments. They were 2-wheel drive. They had pink and white striped tops and pink and white striped seats and tassels on the tops. And, it was made very popular by Elvis. He had one. It's still in Graceland. It's been in movies and stuff. There's been songs written about him and stuff like that. So that one's probably my most unique one. At some time, the gentleman that painted it green, he had put a lot of, which I wish I could meet this guy, because this is one guy that I would like to talk to just see why. But he converted it to 4-wheel drive. It was 2-wheel drive. It was column shift. He got rid of all that. And then he put a very rare capstan winch on it, which was a military option. And it's just like an old sailboat capstan style winch. It's driven off the front crank of the motor. And I mean, that's worth more than the Jeep is. And, it was kind of neat to see that he put that on there. And I mean, what was he using it for, And that was my first one that I put a lot of love and time into. Totally rebuilt it and took it out west. I built it in like a month, took it out west and did our trip out there, and I put 2,000 miles on it that summer. I didn't come home. I think I put 6,500 miles total on my truck and the Jeep. Was gone all summer in it, and it was incredible, just going all over out west, running into friends and doing trails, and people were even flying in, and they would do a little jaunt with me, and for a weekend, and then they'd fly back, and just it was epic. So that was my favorite one. That's the one I'll keep forever. Kept it the way that he had it. It's real patina. It's just real rough. That's kind of my favorite look of him, is just the patina look, because it tells a story. It's like, yeah, I've kind of become like a specialist in finding these pink ones, because people will hear about them, like, well, find me a pink one. I'm like, okay. And I've rehomed like 4 of them now. I've got a friend currently working on another one right now. He's actually working, which I respect this, is he's making it as correct as possible, like something you would have got in the 60s. But yeah, this one, maybe one day I might, when I'm older, I might, realize the value of it, and just like, I need to take it back to original. But as of right now, I've just, I put some knobby tires on it, rebuilt the motor, transmission, and put some decent seats in it, and just enjoying it, If anybody wants to get into Willys and make money, I wouldn't recommend it. I have had a lot of clients come to me with, they might have a sentimental one that's like, oh, hey, my grandfather had this, but it's been sitting outside for 50 years, and they want me to fully restore it. And it's like, well, it doesn't really make much sense, because, by the end of it, you'll have 50 to 70 grand in it, and it'll be worth 20. So it's just, so a lot of those people, and some people don't care. They want the sentimental value of it. They're always going to keep it, and I don't mind doing that. But I usually try to talk people away from that edge and say, hey, let's find you one for 15 or 20 grand instead of shuffling 50 to 70 and this. That's the crazy thing about them too, is the value on them has always stayed down for some reason. They're not the most practical vehicles, I get it, but so is a golf cart. It's not real practical, but they seem to be more expensive than them now. Or even a side-by-side. We always joke about that. These are their original side-by-sides. And a nice one of those is $40,000 now, which is where flat fenders should be, because if you follow inflation, that's where they would be. But yeah, they're not really the most financial decision, but man, they were a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun. A lot of people don't know this. The first Land Rover was actually built on a flat fender chassis. So in the late 40s, Land Rover saw what Willys was doing, and they saw, the war was over, and they saw that, what they were doing with them, and they were like, you know what, we're gonna build something like this too. And so the very first one was built on a World War II chassis, and the very first prototype, you can totally see it's even got the axles and the wheels and everything from an MB. And it kind of hurt my heart being a deep down Land Rover guy when I first heard that, but now that I'm a Willys guy, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. I have some Series 1 trucks and some Series 2 trucks, and they're very similar. When you set them side by side, you're like, okay, I see it. A lot more issues with the Land Rovers, but that's just, British vehicles. One of the trips that we did out west, friend blew a head gasket. They're super basic, flat head, 134 cubic inch engine. We did a head gasket in 48 minutes at a gas station, and I think that guy's still running that head gasket today. That was 5 years ago. So yeah, they're super simple. The bad thing about it is you just can't hardly find anybody to work on them, which has kind of led me into, doing it myself, because I was working on my own, and then one thing led to another. Friends would have them, and they're like, well, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And they're super simple, and I don't quite understand why people don't work on them themselves. I think it just kind of goes back to, they don't really understand them. But if you read the Willys manual, they're just simple as can be. I love to build the motors. I love to build the carburetors, and, and I'm a bit of a gearhead, and I like hot rods. I like fast cars, and it's hard to make one fast, but you can do it. I'm always trying to squeeze a little bit more power out of them and stuff like that. And it's fun to get around other guys that know them and running in a pack, and then they see which one's the fastest one. And I have a handful of friends that are on the same page. Some guys don't care. Most of them are like, we're not going to go faster than 40. And I'm like, well, let's do 70. And it's I've got a few that'll do 70, 75. It's pretty spooky, not the greatest brakes and not the best steering, and not recommended. No seat belts, no roll bar, but it's fun to get in one that's considerably more powerful than a stock one.
This month of VINwiki content is brought to you by Premier Financial Services, and they are the perfect partner in your journey to own your dream car, because their Simple Lease is the most powerful tool in the world of exotic car financing. You'll get all the benefits of a leasing structure, like lower payments and better tax treatment, along with everything we love about a normal exotic car loan, where you can trade in and out at any time, always know where you stand thanks to their amortization table, and accumulate equity for whenever you're finished and ready for the next car. And Premier is great because they're wholly owned and backed by First Financial Bank, which means they have more buying power than any other exotic car bank or collector car bank in the United States, and their customer service is unmatched. Also, rates are lower than they have been in a very, very long time, so it's never been a better time to reach out to Premier, talk to their representatives, learn what you can pre-qualify for, and let them help you own the car of your dreams with Premier Financial Services.